firm in New York City. I act as a trusted advisor and technology partner for a lot of my clients. And today, Somos has asked me to be your advisor in helping you talk with this panel right here about the top priorities of the evolution of data networks. Now, there's a big reason why I was so happy that they asked me to cover this subject, and it was because this is a topic that is moving at such a fast pace. Data networks right now, most people think they have broadband, and broadband has changed so much from just 5 years ago to what it is today and where it's going. It's going exponentially. What's available today is anywhere between 5 to 25 times more faster than anything else is out there. So what I wanted to know is, I want to ask the audience something. I want to make this interactive. So let me ask you, how long ago have you guys been online? Were you guys online in the 80s? Yeah. 90s? All right. And 2000, I'm assuming everybody was online, right? So today, what do you guys think right now are the top priorities? Like, what would be some priorities that you would think you should be talking about today? Anybody?
Privacy.
Privacy, it's a good one. Anyone else?
Security.
Security, we're gonna touch on that one.
Storage.
Storage is part of it. Storage is part of it. So today, we're gonna focus on 3 major ones. One is going to be access. The other one's going to be application. What do these faster networks allow us to do now, right? And then we're gonna talk about security. Security is very, very big. But before I get into all these topics, I want to introduce, and I had, he's here in spirit. He's the ranking Democratic member, Senate Committee of Energy, Telecommunications, and Technology. When he comes in, we'll be like, we already know you. Former chair of the Legislative Commission on Science and Technology, former member of the Governor's Panel on Broadband, and founding member of the New York Caucus of Vermont Legislators, a lifelong resident of Brooklyn, a 6-term member of New York State Senate. Senator Kevin Parker, when you come in, everybody go, yay, we already know that. Okay. We also have, she holds the top state legislative affairs slot in New York State. She's responsible for developing strategic plans for achieving AT&T's legislative objectives, as well as for reaching out to key elected officials and policymakers in the state to disseminate the company's perspective on a range of issues. She works to ensure that AT&T's New York customers and public officials are always afforded the best possible service in partnering in the telecommunications industry. She's none other than Amy Kramer.
Hi.
Okay. Amy brought some backup, and she also brought Angel Rijos, who's also part of the AT&T Puerto Rico, the assets protection. So he'll be joining the discussion. So before we get into discussion, I wanted to kind of show you a video just about the evolution of data. What is happening? I think this will kind of set the tone to when we talk about access.
It's been said that stories are just data with a soul. But what does data look like in a story that is still being written? It's data in motion, generated by all of us and everything around us together. And it's most valuable the moment it is created. So while insights from our past will continue to guide us forward, we will move beyond the way we record and react, and set a new course that connects pinpoints of intelligence with the people and machines that take action. Sensors will talk to doctors so a coach can heal on the sidelines rather than in the hospital, while the intelligent network lets a son's proudest moment reach his biggest fan without being lost in the crowd. Data in motion will move us from an event to an insight in only a moment, allowing us to use everything we already have to create amazing things we've never imagined. And it's only the beginning. As new people, processes, and things come together on the Internet of Everything, The importance of our data will be measured not by what it says, but by what we can do with it. In a moment of truth, in our greatest story yet.
One of the key things I take away from that video is on the Internet of Everything, the importance of our data will be measured not by what it says, but what we do with it. So, I'm going to ask the panel, what is some of the things that define what broadband is today, and yesterday, today, and tomorrow?
Well, let me just say a few things first. I just want to thank my colleague Angel for being here this morning, and I also want to give a shout out to Ray Flores. Oh, I think he's behind the iPad in the back, speaking of using our network and our data, for being here. He's my counterpart here in Puerto Rico, so thank you for being here. And Marcial, thank you for putting together such a thoughtful agenda. And those videos are great. I really appreciate it. And Senator Parker, I know he's not here, but when he comes, tell him I said nice things about him later. He really has an open door for us in Albany. He's really a recognized expert on these really complicated issues: telecom, energy, technology. He's really become an expert and a go-to person, and has, again, speaking of thoughtful agenda, has also put forward thoughtful legislation. We work really well with him in Albany, so I really appreciate him giving time and attention to this issue. So, I mean, I think I brought some information also on, just when you talk about the past of broadband and the future. Our story in New York is we're delivering AT&T delivers broadband through our mobile networks. And we were just talking beforehand about in the last 12 years, we've seen in wireless subscribers a 261% increase in the last decade. So basically we went from no cell phone to cell phone and accessing the network that way. And that's just not just AT&T, that's in all of New York. Nearly 10,000% increase in broadband subscribers. So we talk about access, we talk about 10,000% increase. And then a 50% decrease in those switched lines, so basically people giving up their landline and going just to mobility. So in 2007, we had 17% of households that were wireless only, and now in 2012, we're at 23.5%, and I'm sure in 2014 that will be even higher. And it's just under 10% are landline only. And when we talk about the FCC takes a look at broadband access in New York State. DSL broadband is about 74% of the population, and those who have access via cable modem is 99% of the population. So, and almost everybody has access. And I think at AT&T we also look at programs and support programs related to the adoption of broadband and making sure that New Yorkers understand that that is important to education and to how they're connected to the world.
Okay. How does the lack of internet broadband affect communities?
I think we're concerned about that digital divide. And we always look at the Pew study. The Pew Institute is a great study. I think they update it every couple of years about the digital divide and how people and different groups and populations are accessing the internet. And we find that the Latino community and minority communities are often using their mobile devices. And so at AT&T, we talk about keeping that network strong, and that's the way that a lot of folks are accessing the network. At AT&T, we also support groups that help support broadband adoption. We're big supporters of the One Economy Corporation, and that enables families to receive free and affordable broadband access. And the training component is really important too, making sure they know how to use the computer and know that it is important in their lives. I think that's important also for families with kids in school.
Angel, do you see that digital divide closing, that the digital divide closing here in Puerto Rico?
It's the same tendency like in New York. I mean, right now in Puerto Rico, young kids are starting to use the internet to develop their educational skills, and they start to be more friendly with the internet. Not in the past. In the past, it was the opposite. It was everything so manually. And now they are moving forward to the internet. So internet is a great tool for education here in Puerto Rico.
What do you guys find as hurdles preventing some people to getting internet or getting broadband? What are the hurdles that they're doing now? They're experiencing right now.
Do
you think it's cost? Do you think is it just accessibility?
I think there is a lot of affordable broadband out there, and it varies from community to community. I think at AT&T we focus on the adoption and making sure we're partnering with groups that are talking to communities about how important it is to make sure that you have access and you're not being left behind.
In the island, it's just a matter of accepting that the risk to join, you know, that field. That's basically it. I mean, people are afraid to change it here in the island, but that impression is even changing.
Okay.
To technology and you know, this is the era of technology everywhere. So we're learning that also as well.
Well, it's funny because Google has just recently acquired a company called Titan Aerospace, and they're trying to provide wireless access by using drones. And this is in conjunction to a project that they had called Project Loon. And what they would do is they would have these drones. They have these drones now that they can now fly on solar power, and they can be up for to 5 years. So now Google is trying to because this is the way they're trying to give remote, access to everyone in the United States and everyone here. So are there other initiatives that you know of that AT&T may be doing, that are similar to something like that? Not that you guys have drones, but some other.
You don't know we don't have drones.
Maybe you do. Something that, what are some of the initiatives that are happening right now at AT&T to increase that adoption rate?
I think to increase that, well, I know that with our proposed DirecTV merger in New York, we talked about reaching more New Yorkers and closing some of the gaps and making sure that even New Yorkers in some of the rural or more suburban areas have high-speed access. And we'll be delivering that if that deal is approved through extension of fixed wireless loop. And that uses radio frequency to connect homes to a receiver that then connects to the switched wireless network. It's not new technology, but it has been improved upon. And previously it was costly. We're seeing it rolled out more in New York City as well. So that's a technology that we'll be investing in New York and hoping to give more New Yorkers access to faster speeds and more packages as part of that commitment.
Why wouldn't we treat access to internet like we treat access to electricity? I mean, everybody has electricity, but there was a time where there were some rural areas that just didn't have electricity. Why wouldn't we treat internet access kind of the same? Isn't there something, that you could, actually I was hoping Senator Parker was here for that question.
Take that question for him. And we attend a lot of panels, especially up in upstate New York, where there's a perception that there isn't, and I think that's part of, there's also a perception that there maybe isn't affordable broadband available. And so it's not unusual for us to meet with congressmen upstate New York, and they'll say we need to bring more broadband. And what we show them the map, and we say, actually, your constituents are covered. A lot of it is, we still have a lot to do on the adoption side and making sure that people understand, and families understand that it is important, and that it's important to have it for their children. And so that's, again, where we've been making those investments.
We're moving forward toward that. We are developing infrastructure here, so we can provide services where we don't in the past. So we're moving forward toward that.
How are you doing that? Are you doing that through Wi-Fi, or are you doing that through fiber?
Both. We're developing both. Wi-Fi in some areas that we already have presence. Wireless where we don't.
AT&T, we're in a part of a 3-year investment. We call it Project Velocity, Project VIP. And it's just a huge investment in our network, in our wire network, in our DAS system, which is distributed antennas inside buildings that adds more capacity, investments in our wire line, and it's a $22 billion commitment over the next 3 years. So again, just increasing and growing the network.
Okay. I mean, if you guys have any questions, don't let me be the only one.
I just have a quick question. So my son is in 6th grade, and now with the Common Core, he's online all the time because now you can watch videos of how to do the math, and I think it's just incredible resource. For the rural areas, are you seeing, I mean, I think it's such a great program that they have this, and my kids can go jump online and view these. Are you working with schools to encourage them to do things like this? Because I just think it's wonderful.
Well, and as you know, in New York, we just had the vote on the Bond Act for technology in the schools, and we look forward to working with the governor's office on that initiative. We do provide broadband to schools, if it's part of their plan, but we find that schools are at many different places on their technology journey. Some are fully, Wi-Fi, some are still struggling with access, so it is all over the map. But we look forward to working on, I think that initiative will be very, very helpful to help us work with schools.
It's been great in my household.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the issues that I've encountered as some of the members of our union, mainly senior citizens and the older adults, they do not use the internet. They find it very, very complicated. And their children are using it, they don't understand it, so that's why they don't get involved with it. And every time we say, go online, do this, do that, they don't. How can we bridge that gap? You're talking about adoption, but so many of them don't use it because of that. They feel like it's something beyond them. And, I learn from my kids, and how do you do this, how do you do that? So I know that there's some technical problems in even me accessing certain things, not understanding. So if they don't use it at all, and I use it, I said, I have to go to some IT person who's maybe like, how do you do this? How do you do that? How are we going to bridge that gap with, number one, the senior citizens? Because they figure I lived all these years without it. Why do I need it now? But when I have my 7-year-old grandchild who can access the internet and everything, I'm like, how do they do that? 3 and 7 years old. So that's a problem that we have, that we want to be able to get across to all of our membership and give them education and teach them about things and show them things, and they don't even, it's like another world, another entity for them.
Right.
That's the issue that we have.
I think, and I think she's touching upon the rise of the new applications that are coming out, because you have that high bandwidth now. There are things that you couldn't do computing-wise 5 years ago that you would try to do, but you would get the loading sign or something like that, and you would get frustrated because we live in an instant gratification world where if it doesn't happen very quickly, you just quit. I don't have time for this. But I think a lot of that has changed because the data networks are becoming more and more faster and more available. So I wanted to do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, this is not me speaking about AT&T, but it's a pet peeve of mine when I see seniors being sold short or they can't use the technology. Our seniors are some of our fastest adopters of technology, and we actually work with a group called Oasis in New York upstate, and then Oats downstate, and they teach classes. And we have our technicians from our stores go in and teach classes and sit down one-on-one with the seniors. Oats has a workshop, and I believe in Brooklyn, they have some outlets where they bring the seniors in and teach them the technology. And you're absolutely right. It's the grandchildren and the children are the big drivers that get the seniors that want to be on technology. And again, we've had great success with those programs. And I hate to see them being sold short, but they're great adopters of technology and do very well. A lot of the apps are only getting easier. So we find that when we teach them, they adopt it very quickly when someone sits down with them. So I'm so glad we support this program.
I have a quick question about the seniors and the program that you offer in the city. Is the Oats program that you're referring to that's downstate, would they be able to come to a work site to teach some people how to use the internet? Because
Possibly. Afterwards, let me get your card and I'll connect you with our contacts at Oaks.
Okay.
That's great.
And I think that the issue with the digital divide nowadays is less about the hardware and the background, what happens at the data network. It's more like what to do with information that is available to the people. It's not about doing a Google search. It's about being able to get information to you and then be able to sort out what is relevant and what is not, what it might be valid, what it might not be valid. And I'm the Vice President for Technology at Puerto Rico College in New York City. And I have noticed, a worrisome trend among our schools. They're more concerned about the smartphone than actually using the smartphone to get access to the to Facebook or Twitter or one of these websites, and less concerned about using the technology for other educational purposes. And I have noticed that trend tremendously. More and more students report that they're not interested in having a laptop. They're not interested in having not even an iPad unless it's for watching a Netflix movie. And they rather go to the computer lab in the college to do their typing, because you cannot do a project using a smartphone. You need to use probably a computer at a minimum, a laptop to type a paper. And this is the biggest concern that I have. What happens as a technology person, what happens in the back office? I don't think people are really that interested in that part. All they want to do is just like we do with the light switch, that I turn it on and it works. I don't care about how Con Edison or the Power Authority generates all of that in the background. For the user, what they care is about, I want to flip the switch and it works.
Well, the thing about that is that it's not just the light switch. It's actually what is the speed behind it?
Amy said great things about you.
What I meant by the light switch is not that being on, it's being on to the capacity that is usable. In that particular case, if you're watching videos or multimedia, it should be at a particular broadband speed, bandwidth that it would be usable. So that's what I mean about flipping the switch, that it works.
Right, and what some of the things that just because it works, they don't realize how much capacity is behind it and what new applications are available because that capacity is there to deliver not just multimedia or just video, but there's entire training sessions. Like that access to having that training session live for them is something that my kids use it all the time. They learn when I was a kid, they used to tell me, if I wanted to learn something, go look it up in the encyclopedia. The saying I go to my house is YouTube it. That's how they find out. So,
actually, I have a quick question. I'm in agreement with you in terms of my daughter does all her homework and assignments. They're assigned via computer. She has to do everything via computer. And I was watching a newscast in which they spoke about limiting access to the internet in terms of priority. Like companies may have access to different band or different speed.
that's net neutrality.
Yeah. The way you said that access to the internet and as well as same as electricity, if that happens, how will that? How is AT&T or even the government and all that's prepared to? Because it's going to affect us in such a major way. Like I said, we're all doing everything is computer right now, technology, and if that's going to be slowed as to priority is who gets what and how fast your band is, it's kind of going to be limited. So how's that?
So what is net neutrality and why is it important?
Oh boy. Well. Oh, okay. Oh no. Well, I will just say that AT&T is very concerned about making sure that all of our customers have a good experience when they're online, and that's again that huge investment that I just mentioned. We're the largest private infrastructure investor in the country. We have been investing more in our network than anyone else, and that's to make sure that we can meet the demand, that growing demand that I just talked about for videos, for to make sure that that experience stays strong and we can meet the huge increase that we just talked about. So, but we also have to manage our network so that critical needs are met and everybody can have a good experience on our network.
So you guys will pretty much handle it internally in terms of how access and speed is provided to your customers. Okay.
Hey Ray, how you doing?
Hey, Seth.
Good. So as it relates to net neutrality, I mean, the reality is that this is really about, the whole broadband thing is about three things, right? Speed, reliability, and security, right? And so those are the kind of three basic things. But there's also a fourth thing, which is affordability, right? And that's really where the rubber meets the road. We can do the first three, right? I have a contractor who's always telling me, he says, Kevin, there's three ways that you can do things, but you can only get two of them at a time. It could be good, fast, or cheap, right? And again, if it's good and fast, it's not going to be cheap. If it's cheap and fast, it's not going to be good, right? And so, we really need all four, right? We need, speed, reliability, and security, and affordability. And so that's the piece that we're trying to work out. And then, Amy might have mentioned, that AT&T is actually a for-profit company, right? And so they have a commitment to their stockholders, right? Which for some of us also, right? Like we own AT&T, they're a publicly traded company, right? So like we have an investment in wanting them to actually be profitable, right? And so we have to figure out how we do that in the same context of providing these services. I think that we're at a place now, at least from the government side of things, where we are trying to be creative and think through what we need to do in order to not have an extra charge on people so they have access, particularly because this is so critical. There is literally nothing at this point, I have a friend who says that access to high-speed internet is it's like a right, like school, like housing and healthcare, and like it's a basic right, right? Like how many, I've been traveling a long time, but like now every single time I go to a hotel, I'm like, how do I access to the Wi-Fi? How do I get access to the Wi-Fi? I'm incredulous when I have to pay for it, like incredulous. I usually don't pay for it, I tell it to my cell phone usually, but you figure out what you have to do with it. I mean, we've all become dependent on this, and this is really, really critical, both in communities of color and in the poor communities, both in New York State and in Puerto Rico, right? And so this has been a huge issue about how we need to do it. So that on the issue of net neutrality, we really want to figure out how we go forward into the future without having to create additional costs for consumers.
So you think corporations should be able to pay more to get a faster lane instead of being equal?
I think that's something that we ought to explore. I think that's something that we ought to explore. I think everything has to be on the table right now. I mean, part of the dynamics, there is no spoon, right? This is the telecom version of the enterprise, going where no one has gone before, right? And so these are new issues and new problems, and I think everything should be on the table. And I think if that's how they can meet their costs, until we come up with a better solution to that, or we can demonstrate that it doesn't cost them more to provide faster service,
Well, because
then we have to look at every option.
Because the idea is that if corporations are able to buy faster internet, it slows everybody else down, and that's what's not neutral about it. So right now I know that they're deciding what to do.
Some of this is going to be a technology issue, right? Like some of this, like what I'm hoping, because we actually have in the state of New York and at our nanotech center up in Albany, right? Like the greatest technological group of people, right, in the Western Hemisphere, right? And so I'm pretty praying that they come up with something that says, we figured this out, right? We figured out how do we get more people on, and how do we get everybody faster, so forth. So I think at some point we will make that breakthrough. I know that there are in fact people working on that.
It's a challenge.
But it is a real challenge, and so I think eventually we will get to that point. The question is how do we manage it between now and then. I think the bigger question, and for some of us, the issue of net neutrality is more important, is really critically important. But to be honest with you, access is actually a bigger challenge for us right now. There are places in my district and in Phil Boyle's district where people simply don't have access to broadband, and where we have to make that absolutely available to people because they can't even apply for a job unless I've had to look for a job. Thank God. Thank you to the voters of the 21st district. That's going to give me another term. But so I haven't had to look for a job in a while. But I remember when I was younger, finishing graduate school, writing all these letters. I'd go through the New York Times, and I would send these letters in. And now they tell you do not mail. They don't even have PO boxes. They don't even accept it. If you mail something, they won't even accept it. You have to do it over the internet, right? And if you don't have access to a high-speed broadband access, then how do you even apply for a job, right? How do you do your schoolwork, right? There's a competitive disadvantage to young people, because also in the communities, and this is the bad part, right? So if you're in the Upper East Side, you can get a Wi-Fi internet access anywhere, right? You walking down First Avenue in the 70s, you can just turn your iPad on, walking down the street. You ain't got to be nowhere. Like it's just free Wi-Fi, just everywhere, willy-nilly with free Wi-Fi, right? But you come to Brownsville, Brooklyn, and you could be in an internet cafe and can't get a high-speed connection, right? It's those are the challenges that we're facing right now, And you know, I'm talking about Brooklyn because I'm from Brooklyn, but I know the North Country in upstate New York, and I know some of the outskirts of Long Island, especially towards the shores, have absolutely those same problems. So we need to be sensitive that this is a problem that cuts across racial lines and sometimes even economic lines, because just because you're rich doesn't mean that you live in a place where you can get access to broadband.
Okay, so Lynn, you have a question?
You know, to follow the kind of close, we're talking a little bit about capacity here too. I mean, if there's sufficient capacity, a lot of these other issues go away.
Right.
What are some of the challenges that you face here on the island, and of course Amy can refer to what's going on in New York with regard to challenges on capacity, and then maybe the senator can talk a little bit about maybe where government can intervene a little bit to help.
Well, here in the island, one of our challenges, exactly that one, make our network faster and with more capacity. You know, that's a challenge. Our engineers used to deal with it in a daily basis, and they continue to develop our network. They continue to make an inversion for our infrastructure within the company to develop the service and become more faster and more capable to deliver our services. Yeah. We're not far from what the senator just mentioned. You know, we have areas that we need to focus on, and that we are focused on those areas to cover their needs.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a role here to play, particularly for government, right? And I think that there's actually three pieces that make sense for us. The first is about right-of-ways, right? So to the degree that we need to dig up streets and create right-of-ways, that we ought to be working to make those processes easier. I think that there's not a lot of problems with that. We have a bigger problem on the energy side than we do on the telecom side as it relates to right-of-ways and getting access to what we need to get to in terms of the streets. But to the degree that we need to do those things, that's one of the areas that I know I'm committed to, and I think that my colleagues are committed to make sure that when we need to physically access the landscape in order to make broadband available, that we're doing that. I think that in rural areas and less populated areas, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge because you run into an ecological problem more than a streetscape problem as it relates to work. But again, I think that we need to be creative about coming up with solutions to do that, and I think we're committed to do that. Because we think that both can be done. It's not so broadband at least is not so intrusive that you can't figure that out. So if you can run a phone line, you can install FiOS or whatever. And so we can figure those things out, and we're committed to doing that. I think the second area, as relates to research and capacity, coming back to your question, is really about providing incentives. And I think that I think that's a good place for us to invest as a state, to look at where we can get tax breaks and other things in order to incentivize building of our infrastructure. I think about this as part of the green collar economy, right? And we have to think about those of us on the regulatory side have to think about it the way AT&T thinks about it, right? It's a commodity, but it's also an industry. And it's a very significant industry in the state of New York, and I'm sure in Puerto Rico as well. And it's growing. It's a growing industry, right? And so we want to incentivize the building of it because that industry actually helps other industries, right? To the degree that we create more connectivity in our state, it helps other industries grow. And so we certainly want to think about telecom and broadband expansion as an industry and not just a commodity, right? And so it's a good place, I think, to invest and to be looking at, again, both on the access side of actually, putting fiber or whatever into the ground, but then also into the R&D side, such that we want to attract the companies to the state of New York that are in fact doing this work. We want them to say, they have nanotech, they have Amy Kramer there, we're going to go and we're going to, work with nanotech and Amy to make sure that that capacity is built on the long haul. And I think the third area is regulation, and I think it's, you know, it's issues like net neutrality and thinking through how we do that. And I think that there's a bigger role for states to play. To this point, we really have advocated a lot of this responsibility to the feds. But I think that now that there is so much going on that we can no longer just simply say, okay, this is an FCC problem, that we really need to be more engaged in that. AT&T but doesn't want to hear that, but I certainly think that in order to protect our consumers and also to build our industry, that we need to be more hands-on in terms of our partnership. And in that vein, 3A would be, we need to continue to work closely with AT&T and Verizon and other, Time Warner Cable and others, Cablevision, so on and so forth. I don't want to get in trouble with nobody else. RCN, whoever, right? We need to work with all of our partners in the industry and hear their ideas about what we can be doing. I think many of us are happy to have those conversations about, what do we do and how do we create, both a level playing field, but then also and how do we incentivize and reduce burdens and cumbersome administration such that this stuff can happen.
I was just about to
Okay,
shout out.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
want to your end. You've always had an open door for us. We really appreciate that. It's really been a great partnership. When you have an idea, you're very encouraged to reach out to industry and talk through some of these complicated issues. So is Senator Boyle, who joins us here today, Phil Boyle from Long Island, and I know you and I, we've had conversations, especially after Sandy, about communications on the island and preserving technology for the storm. So thank you for your partnership also.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And one of the points, and Senator Parker making an excellent point about this is a federal issue, but we can't abdicate it, and I think that incentivizing it, whether it's tax breaks, whatever. I have the unique situation. I represent barrier islands, Fire Island, and some of the barrier. After Sandy, the copper wire is taken out. Yeah. These people had nothing, no communications, and so not naming companies, but wanted to bring in just a telephone-only situation. A new technology, and that was fine, but people had no internet. And these people worked from home, right, or they had to commute to the city, right, and they were in trouble. Yeah. And so that is really one of the things that we need to look at. Whether the contract these companies make with New York State about giving just involves telephone. I didn't realize that at the time until I learned it the hard way. But I think it needs to be looked at in terms of internet access, broadband access as well. The days of just television, just telephone are long gone.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying before, that
yeah,
it has to include, it's just like electricity. Just like you need electricity to turn on the light to see where you're going, yeah, everybody's depending on internet access. So, there's some things that I know there was 1935, there was an act where, the government pushed forward an electricity, initiative to make sure that every place had electricity. And I don't see why that couldn't happen today with internet. So I would hope that would happen one day. But I want to move on to application, because with these high-speed capacity networks right now, we want to get into what is it that you can use in application. So let me ask a little question. How many of you have iPhones, iPads, Androids? All of you? Okay. How many of you do cloud computing? Cloud computing. If you have an iPhone and now you are already doing cloud computing, and a lot of people don't realize that. That is already, people say, well, what is that? So I'm going to show you a little video that shows what kind of, what cloud computing is and what some of the applications are being used even in public safety.
Cloud computing is the variety of computing concepts that involve a large number of computers connected through a real-time communication network, like the internet. Okay, but when do we really use the cloud? Well, that's easy, almost always, and it's divided into 3 categories. When you store something online, you're using the cloud, and this is called infrastructure as a service. And what about when you're paying for those extra features on your favorite game, like Candy Crush? Yeah, you're using the cloud too. The payment platform belongs to a type of cloud we call platform as a service. Do you manage your tasks with web-based tools, or are you procrastinating on these tasks by playing a browser game? Either way, you're still using the cloud, and this is called software as a service. So if anybody asks, you now know the 3 types of cloud services: infrastructure, platform, and software. It looks like there's a lot of clouds out there. Don't forget your umbrella in an emergency.
Emergency services need highly reliable communications. Along the way, AT&T has you covered with public safety solutions across the nation. AT&T is a leading provider of mobile IP-based services with the country's most reliable 4G LTE network. So AT&T is uniquely positioned to build IP next-generation 911 and mobile solutions. Solutions that reflect how people communicate today by voice, text, app, or video. With AT&T's nationwide high-speed broadband LTE network, powerful content is relayed to first responders. Public safety agencies can turn information into action. When the scale of disaster creates overwhelming demands on service agencies, network disaster recovery operations are ready to roll. Continuity is monitored by AT&T's industry-leading Global Network Operations Center and backed by a trained recovery team, a fleet of mobile disaster recovery vehicles, and on-demand emergency mobile capacity. AT&T Public Safety Solutions help agencies concentrate on what they do best, keeping people safe. We've got you covered from call to car to crisis.
That was me.
So Amy, you got us covered, right?
Absolutely.
That was Amy, by the way, running through the flames.
Anything for a network.
So given that there's cloud now and there's this type of computing now where it's not just about the computer that's on your desk now, it's the combination of computers that are grid computing. What do you think is the most important new application available today for that we should be looking at right now?
Well, I mean, I will say AT&T, we have our vision for the future. It's called AT&T 2020, and there's 3 components of that, and it's all cloud and it's all network. And you know, making the cloud, I think, operate more efficiently, again, to keep up with network demand is a key portion of that. We have this, one of the 3 priorities is, we call it Domain 2.0, and it allows us to better work with our collaborators and innovators who can help us move the cloud to the next level and just stay at the forefront of technology. A lot of it is making the cloud smart, so it can deploy power to where it's needed, and maybe just to manage that network more efficiently.
Talking about those first responders, see how vulnerable that can be in a moment of crisis. See, that's one of a different perspectives that you can have an application toward your advantage.
I mean, we have specific, I could talk about, we have something called Community Central, and it's an application to connect, for governments, for municipalities, to connect to their, constituents, either just for information you normally get from 311, or in a disaster, a way to communicate with them also.
There is no one specific one.
No.
Because
Yeah.
that's depend on your priorities, on your environment, where you work, either that depend on your needs. You are the one who decide which one it will be good for you or not.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look into each of our devices, you will see that they are completely different, equipped with different, totally different applications. Right, sir?
In terms of the cloud, how secure is it? Because I'm not so versed in computers as I should be. But for example, my daughter does texting, and sometimes I'll get to her texts. And that's, I guess, through the Apple Cloud or whatever that is. How do you prevent?
We're actually going to get into security right after this, because what I wanted to make sure is that we focus on the application. Like, to me, I think the biggest advance in the application that's afforded to us because of high capacity is video on demand. You know, now we live in a world where, you know, you can search it. If she wants to learn something about it, she can go on any one of, YouTube is the biggest, definitely the biggest, but she can go on any different media or content distribution network to learn about something and search, how do I do this? And hit enter, and then now watch a video. That's an impactful thing, because now people can learn at their own pace whenever they want, 24/7 a day. 24/7. So that's what I mean by application. What are some of the new applications that are happening right now because these data networks have these high capacities? You know, fiber is now becoming real. You know, limitless bandwidth is available now.
Well, one of the things we're seeing on the government end is that you can now access, this is more happening on a municipal level than it is happening on the state level, but access to city services and complaints and those kind of things that you can do almost through Twitter, through Facebook, you know, Vine, you know, Instagram. A lot of, you know, the city of New York has actually done, I think, a really good job at making access to that 311 system now start to migrate. I shouldn't say migrate because it's not leaving the phone lines, but it's, you know, it's also adding a lot of social media in terms of access to those things. And we need to catch up a little bit on the state level, but we do a lot less direct services, but there's still a lot of access that you can do online, so that's important.
And the product that AT&T provides, the Community Central, when we were researching that, well, that's an example of software as a service, and a community can scale that however they want and add different features that best fits their constituents. So what we found in the Pew study, there's a Pew study in this as well, that an average call into 311 for a government can cost them up to $8 a call. So many of them are seeing this, it's a return on their investment in moving to online.
The rise of voice over IP. Right? I mean, everybody's connected to the phone through copper, but now with data networks being available, now everything's changing to voice over IP. So have you seen, has AT&T seen that shift where more customers are now moving towards voice over IP?
We're thinking in New York, we don't offer our wonderful, wonderful cable product Uverse in New York, so I don't have facts on that for New York State. Certainly it is part of packages and where we offer that.
The advantage in New York State is that we actually have one of the best infrastructure systems, and so I think there's less we need. And also I think people are not quite, I think in another 10 years when you have another generation come up, they'll be more used to that and a little bit more trusting. I like to hear dial tone. I'm just saying, like I still have a hard knock in my house. You know, I'm ready for that zombie apocalypse and nobody's cell phone gonna be working. I got 2 rotary phones in my house, like I'm not playing. So I still think that they're not on the wall. Don't get me wrong. They're not on the wall. No. But they're handy. They're with the go bag. So just in case I need to call somebody, you know, on my way out from the zombie apocalypse, I'm prepared. Y'all laughing? Anybody's the zombies going to?
I have a question.
Sure.
There's like an application for everything now. I mean, it's like overwhelming. Like basically anything you want, you can get an app for. How does AT&T work with new applications coming? I mean, there's all these new entrepreneurs that are starting. I think I read somewhere that there is a competition that you guys do even for new apps.
We do, and we've had a lot of fun with this in New York, and we did it in the city. We also do it in upstate, and it's again to help develop that tech sector. And I think you made a comment earlier about putting the technology in the iPad in the hands of kids, and they're using it to play games. We're at AT&T really trying to foster STEM careers because we just don't have enough computer programmers. We don't have enough computer scientists and technologists. So we've been investing in STEM careers. We've committed $250 million in the next 5 years to the Aspire program, and we encourage STEM careers and kids to stay in school. Again, we need to have our future computer programmers to help us make this jump to the future. And so what we've done upstate is have, we call them app challenges, and we work with the local universities, whether it be Buffalo State or Syracuse University or Cornell, and all of these local technology groups that are part of the startup community upstate. And again, trying to show that there is a vibrant community upstate that technology and startups can really be a way to keep young people at home, whether it be in Syracuse or New York City. And what's come out of it, we offer challenges and cash prizes and work with the local tech community. They come up with really wonderful apps that have a civic benefit, whether it be where to find your farmer's market. We've had some that have helped people access city government records. to health applications, and we've had great success with this. We're hoping to take it maybe statewide in the future, but we'll be announcing winners for those challenges in a couple weeks in Syracuse and in the latest roundabout challenges. So we're very excited to see what these young developers come up with.
I think the state of New York, as Kevin says, we've been behind, but I think we're going to catch up. We just passed a referendum saying we don't have to print all those bills, and now it's going to be online for us. I don't know if we're going to get each iPad or something like that, but even the use of just an application. So I've advocated for a legislation when I was in the Assembly to say all school districts have to put your proposed budget online, you know? And a lot of them don't. It's a big secret, municipalities, school districts. I just know that there's a retired accountant sitting there who just love to go through the school budget and say, wait a minute, you're wasting money here, you know? That's going to make it a lot more efficient and cheaper.
Okay. All right. So, I want to ask the panel, what are some of the applications that you use today? What are some things that you use today? What are your favorite applications that you use today? That you may not have used 2 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago.
I can't get around the city without Hopstop. I use that quite a bit. Quite a bit.
Okay.
In preparing for this panel, I was researching some of the things that AT&T has coming online, and just make sure I had explored some of the really cool things. I know I want a connected car. I want my next car to be definitely connected. Some of the ways that we're working with the auto manufacturers is fascinating and really just very innovative. So I look forward to those applications that can start my car from inside my house and cool my car and do the diagnostics on a lot of our green cars.
Yeah, those are some of the future applications, like the connected world.
There was a car, I don't know if it's Chevy, but they actually, you can get Wi-Fi in the car.
Yes.
Is it
coming
Chevy?
out on all GM models in 2015. Wi-Fi. And it's also important for the electric cars. I mean, to monitor them.
To me, one of my favorites, since I am asset protection oriented here in the island, is Find My Device. We use that, every time there is a phone either missing or stealing, or there is a missing person that associate sometimes with crime. We use that application to trace, where that person is at, or where that phone is at, so we can move the law enforcement for help to recover that equipment.
You're absolutely. It's funny he says that because I actually had to use that this morning. My wife calls me up. She calls me up and she says, "Can you find my daughter's iTouch?" And I'm like, "I'm in Puerto Rico." She's like, "But could you just ring it for me?" So I'm using Find My iPhone, and I says, "It's ringing. I hope you can find it." Goodbye. So I identify with that application. One of my favorites as well.
Yeah. There's actually 3 that I use the most. The first is probably Dropbox.
Okay.
I use a lot of documents all the time, so I'm always getting people dropping stuff to me. The second is Evernote, which I just got turned on to a couple of weeks ago, and I love it. And it's been a great organizing tool, and I'm constantly helps me with constituents when they stop me in the street and say, help me fix my life. And the third is probably WhatsApp. I travel a lot, and so even when I'm out of the country, if I can get a Wi-Fi signal, I can always WhatsApp people, and it's far cheaper than. Come on, WhatsApp. Yeah. So if anybody wants WhatsApp me, just you have my phone number, holler at your boy.
Are there some other applications that you see transforming government or education?
I don't think it's applications per se. We're so far behind, as you heard Phil say. I think that it's really the access to hardware that's going to make a bigger deal. I mean, we're in the process in almost all our schools, whether you're talking about Long Island schools or Brooklyn schools, of getting whiteboards, smart boards and iPads, and just keeping up with technology. One of the things that we've had to transform, and we haven't quite done this yet, Senator Boyle, in the context of our budget, is that we haven't done a good enough job at actually budgeting computer help people, like tech people, right? So you'll get, for a school, 2,000 iPads and, smart boards and other stuff, and then you have one person to fix every single one. They're sitting, literally, I've seen this, like, and it's not even like a real tech person. It's like the science teacher who happens just to be a techie on his, sitting in a room with all of these broken things, looking like a watchmaker. And we really have to do a better job at figuring out what it takes to, in fact, maintain the hardware such that the hardware is available for both teachers and students as we kind of move in this age. So we haven't caught up from a budgetary and kind of process perspective, and I think then once we are able to do that, then the rest of those things I think will become more relevant.
I will note AT&T doing a lot of technologies and applauding the announcement that the state education department has said that computer science courses can count towards your Regents exam, and that's something that we've been advocating for a long time. So I think that will go a long way to get schools thinking about how important computer science is.
Okay. All right. So now I want to get into security. Security is a big thing. So I'm going to leave you another little video. It's the last one. But I think you'll enjoy this.
It's almost like a little movie.
Yeah.
These guys are good. Let's get to work. A hot little startup with a great idea. Their target, Acrobass. Offices in 12 countries, 5,000 staff. You'd think they'd be secure, wouldn't you? Make some noise. Pulse. A smokescreen. A decoy breach to hide what they're really after. Confidential information hidden in the depths of the system. Still here? The computer's crashed. On the club. See you Monday. It's okay for some. Right now, the chances are someone, somewhere, is attacking you. And you don't even know it. Okay, chaps. We're in. I bet you're wondering how they got this far. Give us a smile. Lovely. She's in. Sensitive passwords and system details from a keystroke logger hidden under a desk for 6 months. You got it? Easy. These guys, they know it all. Except, a few weeks earlier, a Probass were hit by a smaller breach. It made the board stop and think how vulnerable they were. So they brought in the experts. It's never just an IT issue. They carried out cybersecurity training from boardroom to basement, identifying what was critical to the business. Threat and intelligence monitoring. They planned a cyber incident response and brought in their own ethical hackers to test the systems and make honeypots to trap the attackers. They reviewed the whole business from New York to Tokyo and devised a game plan for any breach. Make some noise. We're in.
It's a denial of service attack. We're just monitoring the situation.
Have they got into any accounts?
Very clever. Someone else bangs on the windows, or you hide in the cellar.
They're on to us.
I'll try blocking them. Is it working?
I don't know.
Well, I need to know, Bill. Is it working? Lena, launch your work.
These guys are good. They're really good. They're blocking us.
Try again. They're blocking us! Try again!
Come on. Straight to Gotcha.
Good, but not good enough.
You're okay. Traffic's blocked.
Oh, you mad?
You can win, but there's always a next time. Who's next?
Cribashing tech.
Criminals just get smarter. Who have we got for the smoke screen? Take your pick. And they're everywhere. A breach will happen. And when it does, will you be ready?
So, one of the sobering realities of cybersecurity is that defense is far more difficult than offense. I mean, the attacker only has to get in one time, the defender has to defend 100% of the time. Right now, with every cloud server, every iPhone, every USB drive that connects to a company's network, it's a point of vulnerability. So, you know, right now, larger companies have over 500 different cloud apps, and it used to be you would be able to protect the perimeter, but in these days and age, there is no perimeter. Now you have to protect the individual. So, my question to the panel is what are some of the things that are you seeing happening now that are mitigating these types of risks? Because now cybersecurity is more of a team effort that's happening because of, you know, the shared decision making that's happening between all these different actors.
This is an important thing actually for the state of New York, and because we have our own systems, right? And so as you talk about, you know, we have the third largest, you know, government, you know, infrastructure in the country outside of the federal government in the state of California, right? But we're actually, I don't know if we're better than the federal government, but we're actually the best literally in the country statewide in terms of cybersecurity. In fact, the state of New York handles cybersecurity for about 7 or 8 other states, right? And so that's been an important part of what we've taken on in terms of just protecting our own, you know, our own infrastructure internally. We have not, frankly, gotten into it from either a regulatory perspective or infrastructure perspective in terms of taking care of customers, because frankly, you know, companies have a, you know, both a responsibility and also an interest in doing that, because nobody's going to do business with a telecom company that can't secure their own information. So that's one of the things that we've left to them. So we're not trying to regulate them unless they get sloppy.
Yeah.
Yes, crime occurs with a combination of three factors. Number one is they need. The criminal need to have a reason to commit a crime. The other one is the knowledge. The person that is going to commit a crime need to have some basic knowledge of what he's going to do. And the other one is the opportunity to commit a crime. There is one, out of those three, we can affect one, the opportunity. That's the one that we need to focus on, and that's the one that we always focus on. Not to provide opportunity to the criminal to commit a crime. Each of us should be able to affect that opportunity. How? By searching, you know, the best program that you need, do an assessment for your own needs or house, company, family, have a family emergency plan and all that. You know, that's the way that this can be deterred.
Okay. And let me just go back also, because I don't want to also, I know I was being a little flippant at the end. I mean, you know, we're very, very concerned about cybersecurity, right? Like, it's really like a huge thing. And it's individuals, right? And that's important. It's also the government, because we have to protect that. There's a lot of personal information that we have and data and things like that the government. So we're really I think, worried about that. But then also, we're worried about, you know, companies as well, particularly Wall Street, right? I mean, Wall Street is the second largest gross receipts that we collect, right? So, you know, when we have a vested interest as New Yorkers to make sure that Wall Street is being protected. And so I think that there has been conversation there to make sure that the things that need to happen are happening. And certainly coordination and conversations are always happening to see what we can do. And certainly if there are things that we should be or can be doing as a government to increase security or create dynamics in which access to technology or software or other things need to happen, I think we're open to those conversations. And some of that's been happening, again, most of that's been happening on the federal level, but I think more and more as capacity increases, as this becomes more of a vital part of the dynamic of our regular citizens' lives, the more and more that you know, myself, Senator Boyle, and Senator Whitburn are going to be having conversations about this and working together to figure out how do we, you know, make a secure environment, you know, on the internet and in cyberspace. Let's be clear that, you know, one of the biggest, actually the largest growing crime in the state of New York is actually identity theft, right? And a lot of that is happening online, right? And so we have to, that's one thing we have to pay attention to and make sure that we're working with companies to make sure. I mean, it's probably monthly, anybody not get something from a company that you've done business with that says they've been hacked, you know, your stuff, right? So that's one of the things that we need to help figure out. How do we, in fact, work with the private sector, and you know, this may be a way for me to even say, figure out how to talk to somebody at the Business Council to figure out something in place that we can work together on. Making that's a you know, a win-win for everybody.
Okay, but even some larger companies are having some major problems with this. I mean, you know, Target got hit. Everybody saw that in the news. Home Depot got hit. I mean, what do you think that? What do you think that is? Why couldn't they prevented this from happening? Do you think it was lack of knowledge or lack of investment in cybersecurity?
When you assume that and you get into a comfort zone that you believe that it's not going to happen to you, that when things happen. You cannot be on that position and have that switch on all the time. Our departments that used to deal with cybersecurity, they need always are getting, you know, information feeding of information and everything in order for them to fight against this crime, which is very complex and not easy to catch as you saw in the movie. You know, people might be away from your country and will be trying to commit this crime. It's very important to prevent, because then guess what? If you're going to do an investigation and you are in New York and the guy are in China, to say a place, it will be a problem talking about our jurisdiction to make that prosecution. So the best tool is prevention. Always look for information that can help you to prevent this type of crime.
And I think some of it is just simply that, like, these hackers out there are just, you know, they're very, very smart, and they're always looking for the next thing, right? It's like, you know, it's like an NFL defensive coordinator, right? Like, they're doing nothing but looking at tape and trying to, you know, one year you have RG3 running around, the next year they're like, nope, we saw the tape, we know what your tendencies are, and now we're going after you, right? And so, you know, Benjamin Franklin says, you know, the cost of freedom is internal vigilance, and that's what the name of the game is with cybersecurity, is that you always have to, in the same way that they're always looking to set their game up, you always have to be looking at the cutting edge of what the techniques that they're using and counter them and have a full-time team. Again, you know, the same kind of, the same way I said that we need to change both our budgets and our processes as we're looking at, like, for instance, education and what we're doing there in terms of making sure we have technology people. right? Corporations now have to have whole cybersecurity teams, right? Like that's become a whole industry now is cybersecurity, right? Like it didn't exist, probably not 10 years ago, right? And now, they're multi-billion-dollar companies that spend their time doing nothing but protecting, protecting networks. And so, people have to invest in them. And obviously, for large corporations, they're somewhat softer targets because they're so big. And so that you have a lot more access points. And again, we have the same problem in government. That we're so big, there's a lot of access points, so you have to be really on top of it. And it's going to be, dedication and attention to it, which is why it was one of my 4 points with access, reliability, security, and affordability.
Yeah, because the question, how does government mitigate these risks when they're now starting to put more applications online?
Right, but I don't think it's about a matter of, that's what my first point was, I don't think it's a matter of government having to mitigate the risk. Again, if everybody feels like, if every month you're getting something from Target saying that they can't protect your data, you know what you're going to end up doing? You're going to stop going to Target.
Yeah.
So Target, there's already, you don't have to regulate that because Target is going to regulate themselves in that matter. Because when their stockholders start realizing that they're plummeting because they're not doing sales because people are not coming in the store anymore, they'll figure it out.
I represent Walmart, and they have not been hacked yet, but they have a system where there's like 10 to 12 firewalls. They actually let the hackers get to 3 or 4 so they can try capturing them and identifying who they are. But they said, it is a huge department within there, and they said every day there's at least 100 people trying to hack them, and all over the world, because they can identify. It's kind of like that map where they can identify where in the world these people are trying to hack them. And some of these retail companies, and I know Target had so many firewalls, but these guys have gotten so good at getting through them all that even these big companies are investing millions and millions of dollars into the security system. They're amazed that these people can get through. It's great. Now that's corporations. Now, I read an article yesterday about, you read in the papers, all these stars that are getting like their pictures taken from the iCloud. And I read one that this woman, it was like 3 years ago, she deleted these pictures to her husband, but yet they were exposed. That to me, I'm like, the corporations have the money, they're working on that, but like me, I'm not saying that I have pictures of me. How does a person, like consumers, like that to me is kind of scary, that someone can access something. I'm not a star, so no one's probably like searching for my name, but.
Not yet.
But like, how do consumers protect themselves?
Don't be apertures and send on the internet. Simple.
Affect the opportunity.
You see all these kids now doing stupid things, and they don't know when they get to an adult that,
Yeah, this is going to be, again, this is going to be a huge consumer issue, and I think that part of what you're going to find out is that people are not going to use services that they don't feel like they're being protected.
Exactly.
Right? Like, so again, a lot of people are not, like, honestly, I don't use the cloud, but not that I have naked pictures either, and who would want to see me naked? Not you, Vicky, but most people other than Vicky are not going to want to see me naked, right? So, but I don't put things on the cloud, honestly, like, other than like what my phone or whatever does automatically. I don't actively store things on the cloud.
Well, these people didn't, apparently, it was some basketball's star's wife, and she said, it was just pictures for her and her husband, and they deleted it 3 years ago, got rid of the phone, never thought anything of it, and then all of a sudden these pictures, they said, were accessed through the iCloud. They didn't even know their stuff was on the iCloud.
Right.
Yeah, and I know you had the question before about
exactly right.
They're probably automatically backing up. That's the other thing too. When you're automatically backing up, you're automatic. What do you think it's backing up to? It's backing up to the cloud. So that people don't know that when they're doing these automatic backups, even when you update your phone, right, and it backs everything up, what do you think it's backing up to? It's backing everything up to the cloud.
Yeah, at AT&T for the individual consumer, I've brought a hand up if anyone's interested in our customer, at least what we offer for ours. We have a website called AT&T Smart Controls. It's a good spot for our customers to start, and it's sort of got the latest cybersecurity threats, and then it's also got links to some of our tools. We have something called AT&T Identity Protect, That allows consumers to go online and keep their identity protected, and we monitor for any criminal selling of your private information. And then we also have something called Internet Security Suite. We partner with McAfee, we've all heard of that name. And then Connect Tech allows us to go, we can go into your computer and check it out, see if there's any malware. And there's also something called Bot or Not portal, where we can go in and see if you are a bot and actually affecting others. And then, you know, we're just constantly monitoring for security threats. We also, I know that William Pelgrim was possibly, we talked about him possibly being on the panel.
Yeah, I was trying to get him.
And when I told AT&T he's going to be on the panel, they said, oh, great. He said, we work with William Pelgrim. So his, if you're interested more in this topic, he runs the Cybersecurity Institute at the Center for Internet Security. So that might be a good place to start to look for resources as well. But if anyone's interested in what AT&T offers to our customers on this front and the tools we've
He also was a former head of cybersecurity for the state of New York. So when I talk about all these great things that New York State does, it was William Pelgrim who actually set those things up.
There's also the National Cybersecurity Alliance, which AT&T supports. I think it's Stop, Think, Connect is their theme, and that's the New Obama administration. It's another tool for individuals.
I think to your point with what it is that when you put your information on the cloud, you're depending that information to always be there. So the cloud is continuously backing itself up all the time. So when you think you deleted it, it's never really deleted. It's always somewhere because there are probably billions of requests of saying, hey, I accidentally deleted something, can you get this back for me? And miraculously, it shows up. So because of that, I think that's why hackers are able to get into those parts of the data networks and be able to retrieve those things.
Well, you just think of the stupid things kids do now and what's going to happen in 20, 15 years when they're working and, someone discovers something they did when they were a teenager.
Yeah, but it'll be like tattoos. See, in 20 years, having a tattoo won't be a problem for you getting a job because everybody's going to have them. Right? So it'll be the same thing.
Well, let me say this if I can. You're talking about the iClouds, but that stuff's been like that before the iClouds came out. Even on your motherboard of your computer, you can delete stuff on your computer. You can have investigators come, take your motherboard out.
Right.
You think you deleted it.
Right.
And they can take it, they have the software, they can go and go to the motherboard. Correct. They can find the thing that you think you deleted permanently. Right. And it's still on there. So the iClouds, I don't think is an improvement of that. I think it's just an extra way of getting it out there in the public as far as surrounding things. Everybody now can get to it. But instead of a personal motherboard in your own home. Right. Somebody got to come get it, take it out. iCloud now, everybody can get it, and more publicly.
Which is why the security pieces is more critical for corporations to be engaged in. Right. But also, what the question is leaping to is the fact that there's still some vulnerability for individual consumers, and that's the piece that we have to figure out, and I think we can work to secure better.
What you just said, these devices are computers, literally. So with the proper software, even if you delete it, we should be able to extract the images and the text messages, content, everything from it. So because it's like any other computer. So with the proper programs and application, we should be able to recover, information in case of any investigations. Obviously, we should be able to obtain those images and content back. So my advice, if you don't want anybody else to
don't put it on there.
Don't put it on there.
Don't put it on there. Bottom line.
And getting back to kids.
I'll that opportunity.
Yeah.
Turn my computer on like
We sponsored an anti-bullying program, Byron Brown up in Buffalo recently, and one of the things we ended up talking a lot about with the kids is just a proper use of the technology that's out there. One thing AT&T's been a leader on is texting while driving. So here's a safe way to use our technology. It's a wonderful thing. Let's make sure that kids are safe. I think that's probably the next frontier. Is we spend a lot of time in the bullying realm talking about how to be safe on the internet, how to be safe and appropriate on social networks. We provide you the highway, but we can also talk to kids about how to be safe.
I guess on a brighter note, though, I think that we're now seeing industries actually communicating with one another when it comes to this whole fraud, cyber fraud, etc. In fact, before I came here to this trip, I had called my bank to inform them that I'm traveling to Puerto Rico, and if there's some, spending outside of my pattern, it's because I'm here. And they said, okay, oh great, we have it noted. And in addition to that, you should be getting a new bank card. And I said, a new bank card? I don't need a new bank card. I have my old one, and I want to be able to use my old card. They said, no, it's actually on its way, because we were contacted by Home Depot regarding the whole breach of security with Home Depot and your card. I was unaware of it, but they said there was some huge Home Depot breach, and Home Depot had contacted my bank to let them know that there was this breach. And although I may not be affected, directly, but since I shopped at Home Depot with my card within the last, I think, 3 weeks, they would recommend that they send a new card. So I had a new card on its way, but I said, the new card can help me in New York while I'm down here. So I took the risk of having my old card here with me, but when I get back, there should be a new card. But it was encouraging to know that there's some communication across industries, and it's just not isolated anymore where Home Depot take care of it on its end, and not necessarily communicating it to the other industries.
So do you think that the burden now is shifting to having more personal responsibility about your own security?
Yes.
Versus government and corporations providing that security for you?
It's teamwork effort that we need to build up. Individually, the government, private sector. It needs to be a team effort. One of our initiatives here in the island, I have good relation with all the security department of the other carriers. And we share information regarding fraudsters that are attempting, to commit a crime against each company, so we can be aware. That same initiative needs to be made, nationwide, so we can win this fight against this type of crime.
Well, I don't want to take any more time. I know it's almost going to be lunch. I think this was a great discussion. I want to thank Senator Kevin Parker for attending, Amy, Kramer, and Angel Rijos for being on our panel. I'm sure if you guys have any additional questions, maybe they can do it offline. So with that, I wanted to end the session, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you.